The Shawnee Manor. "This is the place, babe," Cody announced as he pulled his Jeep up the cracked asphalt driveway. Katie peered apprehensively out the windshield at the looming, decrepit mansion silhouetted against the twilight. The Shawnee Manor had been abandoned for over 50 years, a once opulent estate turned architectural nightmare eroded by decades of neglect. Katie had heard all the stories about the place being haunted, plagued by the vengeful spirits of the Shawnee family's darker chapters. But those same urban legends were what drew thrill-seekers like Cody out here for their social media ghost hunting live streams. "You can't be serious about live streaming from inside that death trap," Katie protested as they climbed out of the Jeep. "The place looks like it's gonna collapse." Cody just grinned and grabbed his backpack full of cameras and ghost hunting gear. "That's what makes it perfect, babe. Imagine the views we'll get if we catch a real haunting going down on camera." Katie shuddered as she followed Cody up the weed-choked path toward the manor's crumbling facade. There was an undeniable sense of heaviness in the air, like the entire property was permeated in sorrow and malice. Before going inside, Katie insisted they do an EVP session in hopes of making contact with any entities that might be present. "This is Pursuit Paranormal coming to you live from the Shawnee Manor," Cody began narrating into his camcorder. Abandoned in 1968 due to a series of mysterious deaths and disappearances, the manor is rumored to be one of the most actively haunted places in the region. "We're about to go inside and try making contact." Katie powered on her digital audio recorder and EMF detector, hoping to capture any anomalies. "We come in peace and mean no disrespect to any spirits present on this land," she stated firmly. "If you have any messages you'd like to convey, please use this device. We're listening." They stood in tense silence for several moments, straining to perceive any subtle shifts in temperature, inexplicable sounds or presences. Katie frowned as her EMF detector began crackling with rapidly fluctuating readings, despite there being no apparent power sources nearby. "Did you catch any of those EMF spikes on camera, babe?" she whispered to Cody. As he panned the lens over, a massive surge caused the audio recorder to let out an ear-splitting blast of white noise static. "Holy shit!" Cody yelped, nearly dropping his gear as the cacophony shredded the night air. When the agonizing shriek finally cut off, there was indeed something audible beneath the lingering ringing in their ears, something that made Katie's blood run cold. It was the unmistakable, mournful wails and pleas of disembodied voices, crying out in torment, growing in volume from every direction around them. "What the hell?" Cody's voice cracked in panic. "How is that even possible?" Katie clasped her hands over her mouth to stifle a scream of her own as the ghostly lamentations grew in unnerving intensity, resonating from every rotten gap and fissure in the manor's facade. But these weren't just random EVP anomalies, they were coherent, haunting voices weeping and begging for mercy. Mingled amid the chorus were inhuman, gurgling howls that rattled her bones. Some primal instinct overrode her paralysis as Katie snatched the camera from Cody. Every hair stood on end as she scanned the device's screen, revealing countless shadow forms flickering in and out of view all around them in dizzying profusion. Darkened faces twisted in agony materialized from nothingness with jaws agape in perpetual screams. Warped, slithering appendages and gnashing entities clawed at the edges of reality, dripping in and out of the visible spectrum. A horrific pressure mounted in Katie's skull as her mind reeled from the implications behind the screen's nightmarish tableau. This place wasn't just an ordinary haunted house, the things that stalked these grounds were from the deepest, darkest primordial recesses of the human experience. An unholy amalgam of torment, evil, and pure psychic anguish congealed into a singularity of metaphysical residue. As her sanity began to fray, Katie became aware of movement in her peripherals. Her breath caught in her throat as she saw Cody being physically accosted and dragged away by unseen forces. His terrified shrieks echoed in the haze as he thrashed against his captors, flesh audibly ripping and tearing in a vortex of ethereal agony. That's when an unnatural cold gripped Katie from behind as something serpentine and boneless wound itself around her throat. she gasped as a suffocating, unnatural dread began crushing the life out of her. Unspoken, primal atrocities from eons, before humanity's meager spark manifested seeped into her mind's eye. Sights of gibbering, inhuman monstrosities reveling in depraved rituals no language could articulate. A cult of primordial entities dwelling in the lightless spaces between realms, feasting on the anguish and suffering they methodically orchestrated over millennia on realms upon realms of time. Katy reeled as the presence seemed to drink her sanity from her very mouth and nostrils like a fine-spun elixir. Her last thoughts as a sentient entity were of the beings that had claimed this cursed land, unbridled supernatural malice rippling outward for eternity, like the shockwaves of creation's first scream into the void. When rescue teams located the missing couple's jeep outside the manor 3 days later, they found a scene of such unfathomable carnage and depravity that most had to excuse themselves to retch in revulsion. No human bodies were recovered, only shredded clothing and hunks of desiccated viscera scattered amid a darkly stained ritual circle of charred bones and eldritch markings spanning the entire property. The lead investigator, a hardened veteran, couldn't shake the deeply unsettling notion that whatever had claimed the young couple's lives sought something beyond simple slaughter, but a far more primordial craving, perhaps as old as sentient existence itself. He stepped back towards his squad car, but not before catching a glimpse of movement from the shattered windows up in the manor's attic, fleeting shadows of things not meant for human comprehension flickering across the warped, peeling glass and patterns echoing the cosmos' first epochs of violence and rapture.